going to be a gracious guest. Umaji? Umaji, I'll be a gracious guest. It's for all, okay? Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be in the company of youth because you guys are the future. I have been specifically asked to share my experiences with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relate 3 stories from my life. I think each of the story will have a message, and I will try and articulate that message at the end of each story. So the year is this is the first story. The year is 1989. I have just finished winning 2 world billiard titles. In the January of 1989, I go to Guntur to play the nationals, and I make a world record break of 147 in snooker. I thought at the time that I was at the peak of my career. 1989, I was playing for almost 15 years. And it was a heady feeling, you know, terrific. You're 28 years old, you have 2 world titles, and you've just created a world record. By February of 1989, my game collapsed. It completely and totally collapsed. Now, what do I mean by collapsed? I mean that in a benchmark of 0 to 100, if I was performing at 90, I was now performing at 8, 9, and 10. If I was making a break of 600 every week, I was now unable to accumulate even 90 points on the billiard table. So for a world champion, a 2-time world champion, just created a record, and suddenly you can't play the sport anymore. It's a time of introspection. I had to do deep introspection to figure out what went wrong. How can you suddenly not be able to play? So this story is about the story of this failure and how I attempted and how I got out of it. So in billiards, as in everything, as in walking, as in sailing, as in cricket, there is technique involved. Now, I played as a youngster, and through the years when I started until 1989, I was what is called an instinctive player. So I played with instinct. I was never taught by anybody. And as I was growing up and as I was playing, people, the pundits, kept giving me pieces of advice saying that your technique is not right, and that somewhere down the line you will find trouble. But you know, in youth, when things are going well, you don't listen to advice. Everything's going well, and you just continue the way you are going on. Now what was happening was that I was doing 5 things wrong, but by some freaky chance, the 5 things wrong that I was doing, it made the one essential thing in my game, and that is the delivery of the cue needs to be straight. Somehow the cue was going straight. So one wrong, I had a wrong bridge, was being compensated by another wrong. Instead of my bridge hand being like this, I put it like this. And I'm supposed to stand in a particular way with my left leg forward. To compensate for the first wrong, I was standing with my right leg forward, and on and on and on. Not only 5, sometimes it was 7, 8, 9 or 10 various variables, all wrong, but coming together, the cue was going straight. But when you're doing 6 wrong things, you have no frame of reference. There's something called copybook. So a copybook stance, or this is the way things need to be done in golf, or this is the way things, you know, production in a factory needs to be done in a particular way, which has been processized over a period of time. And I had no point of reference. So the minute I started the 5 wrong things that I was doing, one of the things I changed slightly, everything went into turmoil. And that was when I did the introspection, that's what I figured out. Now, having played with a particular technique for 15 years, having won 2 world titles, I was faced with a dilemma. To improve, I needed to learn a new technique. But if I ask each one of you, you know the way you walk, there is massive technique in the way we walk. If you look at each one of, if you wear a shoe for 4 years, the same shoe, you will realize how wrong your technique is by the way the heel of the shoe gets, it kind of gets eroded. And if I ask you that, can you now change your walking stance or style, you will need to de-learn everything that you did for the last 20 years or the last 30 years or the last 45 years. So I was faced with this dilemma, and I said, I will de-learn my technique and I will start learning a new technique, a copybook technique. It's very easy to say it. 1989 to 1992 was the most frustrating period of my life. For 3 years, and I was still a world champion, so I was going constantly for tournaments. For 3 years, I performed at 10% efficiency of my performance. For 3 years, it was the most confusing time because I tried new techniques every day. Someday I changed my bridge. It worked for 3 days. And I thought, I've got it. And then it collapsed. This went on for 3 years. I went searching for advice. Earlier, people were giving me advice and I would tell them, I don't need advice. And now I went searching for advice. I went to a coach called Frank Callan. I met Steve Davis and asked him, what can I do right? And slowly, with various pieces of information, with various pieces of advice, I started reconstructing a new technique. Now, I used to work very hard. To win 2 world titles, you need to work hard. I used to work 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours sometimes in a day. But in this time when my game collapsed, I figured out that I had to redefine the meaning of hard work as I had visualized hard work to be. And such is the power of confusion that until clarity comes, you get obsessed. And I started practicing not 9 hours, not 10 hours, I started practicing 15 hours. I used to play from 10 in the morning to 5 in the morning the next day. It was a time when I used to wake up in the middle of the night at 2 in the morning because I would think, maybe tomorrow I need to try this new technique out. Maybe the grip, I need to put slightly more pressure on the grip. Those are the kind of nuances that I was looking at. So a slightly heavier grip, and maybe I need to change my stance. And I would go in front of the mirror at 2 in the morning saying that this is the stance I'm going to practice on the billiard table tomorrow morning. And I would wake up again at 3 o'clock, and I would wake up again at 4 o'clock. And I was married at the time. I got married in 1986, and my wife Kiran, she would wake up and she would start crying. And she would say, Geetu, you'll go mad. And the point is that I was going mad. The obsession to rediscover that technique and the obsession to rediscover what it meant to play well was becoming crazy. And had I not eventually cracked the technique in 1992, that's 3 years, if this confusion had continued for 1 more year, I wouldn't have been standing here, because I would have been in some mental asylum, just looking in front of a mirror and doing that. But that is the insanity that is required to crack something. And this story I tell you just to bring out that what mad obsession can do to you. I stopped socializing completely. I became a complete recluse. Not because I wasn't a social banda or I wasn't a social guy. I didn't have the time. I needed 25 hours in a day to constantly figure out what I was doing wrong, to get rid of the confusion. I stopped going for parties. I stopped going for weddings. I stopped going for people. My best friend's father died and I didn't go to his funeral. I stopped going for very close relatives' weddings. I became a recluse. Did I get any backlash? Sometimes, yes. I wasn't there when my son was born. My son was born in 1991, and I was in England, and I had gone to meet Frank Callan, the coach who was the dada of technique in billiards and snooker. And my son was born as I was trying to figure out, what should I do? Should I do this, or how should I stand? So was I selfish? Yes, I was selfish. Am I happy about the selfishness? I am extremely proud of my selfishness. Be proud of your selfishness. Be selfish when you want to go and figure out something. Be selfish. It's a good quality. The major message of this time, eventually in 1992, it clicked. It clicked first for a week, then for 10 days, and I knew it had clicked when for 1 month or almost a month and a half, with a particular technique, the balls were going in. And I was making a 300 break, and I was making a 500 break. And I went and showed it to Steve Davis, and he said, that's a brilliant stance. And I continued with that technique for 6 months. By the end of 1992, I won an international tournament in September, and then in October, in the World Championship, the World Professional Championship, I won it playing outstanding billiards, and since that day till today, I play with that technique, which was brought to me by the fact that I had failed so miserably in 1989. It was a time of huge frustration, like I have mentioned. It was the most demoralizing time that I have ever faced. But it was a time that I not once did I say, it's over. I can't play. I never gave up. In my mind, I never said that I will not rediscover this technique. In my mind, I never said, even when I was going mad, when I was touching insanity, I was going insane, but I always said, I'm going to crack it. So the message of the story is, you will fail. You will all fail. The most successful of you, the most moneyed of you, the most powerful of you, you will become unpowerful one day, if that's a word. You will lose your money. You will lose your standing in society. You will lose your job. You will lose your grades. But you can't lose your mind, and you can't lose the self-belief that this is, I'm going to crack it. I'm going to get over it, and I'm going to come back. And I think that is the message that I want to give to you. You fail today, you do great, but you will not lose in your mind. That's what is the difference between a winner and a loser. It also reflects, I think, how we define hard work. Don't define hard work from your perspective. Define hard work from the perspective of people who have worked hard, who have been inspirational, and who have set new benchmarks in hard work. 18 hours, yes, was a new benchmark. But you have a Yogeshwar Dutt, who's just won a bronze in wrestling. He lost a medal in Beijing, and he had a knee injury. He got himself operated. The doctor said you may not be able to walk. For 1.5 years, he did rehab, consistent rehab. He was in rehab. I mean, doctor said do it for 3 hours. He was doing it for 9 hours. And for the last 2.5 years, he has worked like a mad dog. He has worked 16 hours a day, and he's not worked like me, not just in an air-conditioned room, on a lovely billiard table, and and quietly moving around. No, sir. His work hard means there's a rope hanging down from that whatever that is, that ceiling, and he climbs it up. It's not as high as that, but 30 feet. And he climbs it up 50 times a day and climbs down. He does 500 push-ups every day. He does 15 kilometers running every day, and that's at 3:30 in the morning. That is hard work. So I think the message is, redefine hard work in your minds. by the benchmarks set up by a Pulela Gopichand or by a Yogeshwar Dutt. The second story happened in 1984, so there is no chronology that I am following in the stories. The second story happened in 1984. I had still not won a world title, but I had just defeated Michael Ferreira in a national championship, and everybody told me you need to go to England to get exposure at the highest competition. In 1984, my father was towards the end of his career in the Ministry of Civil Aviation. He was in the air traffic control tower, and his salary was 3,500 rupees per month. It isn't as bad as it sounds now. It was a decent amount of money, but it wasn't huge money. I had already got a job with Tomco, Tata Oil Mills, and I went up to my boss, V.K. Bali, the president, and I said, "Sir, I have won the National Billiard Championship and I need to go. Everybody's telling me to go to England." This was 1984, early 1984, to get exposure and to get experience and to understand what top level billiards and snooker is. So I need to go and I don't have money. He said, "How much money do you have?" I said, "Sir, I have about 16,000 rupees in my bank account," which was the equivalent of about $500 US. He picked up the phone, he told his admin, "Prepare an air ticket for Geet for whenever he wants to go." He offered me the air ticket, I took it, I collected all my money, collected $500 US, and with two other fellow players, Sanjay Sawant and O.B. Agrawal, who later went on to win the World Snooker Championship in November of 1984, but this was April of 1984. We caught an Air India flight, my first time out of the country. We caught Air India flight and landed in London. We knew nobody in London. I had 500 USD, O.B. Agrawal had 600 USD, because we were allowed only 500 USD. So O.B. Agrawal was a brave guy, he hid $100 in his socks. Those were the days, huh? And we landed in the UK, and people told us, you're going with 500 USD, what happens, And I said, when the money runs out, I have a return ticket. I'll come back, but I'm going. The first tournament that we played at Pontins in Wales, in Prestatyn, I reached the pre-quarters. O.B. Agrawal and Sanjay Sawant reached the pre-quarters. We got a prize money of £25 each. And as we finished the event, we collected our prize money and went for a second event. We stayed 2 days in a hotel, went for another event. We lost in the second round of that event. In a week's time, our $500 converted in pounds at the time was about 300 pounds. We were down to about 200 pounds in a week's time. And into our second tournament, having lost in the second round, we were already thinking of, when do I go back? And as we packed our bags and we were walking from the car park to across the road into the bus station to take a bus for our third tournament, which was in Northampton, we passed a car and there was a gentleman who had his dicky, or whatever you call it, of his car. It was a red color Mercedes Benz, a very old Mercedes. It was open, and he saw us with our bags walking, and we passed him very close, and he said, "Hello." So we said, "Hello." He said, "I saw you three play inside, and you all seem very good players." So I said, "Yeah, we are good players. I'm the national champion. He's the national snooker champion. Yeah, where are you from?" "We are from India." He said, "Oh, you're from India." He said, "My ancestors were from India." He was a Kenyan Patel. And this is exactly how the conversation went. And then, so in his 60th second, he asked us, "And where are you going now?" And we said, "We are going to Northampton, where our next tournament is after 3 days. So we are going to search for a hotel. We'll go to Northampton, search for a hotel, and in the 66th second, he said, "No, you're not going to Northampton." He picked up our bags, put them in his dicky, and said, "You're coming home with me. All three of you are coming home with me." And I was in 84, 23. We were all 23, 25. He had just been recently married. He was a car mechanic. He was on the dole. He had no job at the time. He picked up our bags And there was no mobile phone, and we took the car, we sat in his car, we were in a daze, we sat in the car and he took us straight to Luton, a very small lane, a very lower middle class house, 18 Darbar Lane in Luton. He parked the car, rang the bell, his wife of 2 months opened the door, and we spent 3 months in their house. He had a 2-bedroom house, one of the bedrooms his mother stayed, one he and his wife, and we slept on the drawing room. 3 months, he was unemployed, he took us everywhere. He gave us a home. The very next tournament, I won. I won the tournament and got a prize money of £3,000. It was 2 years' salary of my dad, or just under 2 years' salary. But that incident, it transformed my perspective, and it gave me the opportunity to not only excel in England, but to become a complete player. So what is the message that I drive or I come across from this story? And it is this, that there is a universe out there. It's arranging itself in intricate patterns to assist us. What else can I say? I don't know whether I believe in destiny, but it's an intricate pattern. This intricate pattern assisted me. There are intricate patterns which are perhaps hindering me, but I firmly believe that these patterns of the universe are working, and if you keep looking and if you keep recognizing them, you will find more often than not that there are lots of positive patterns that are emerging in your life, that have emerged in your life, and that will continue to emerge in your life. And I think it's a message in humility, that I'm not doing this all on my own. It's not the power of Geet Sethi or a Umaji, 5-all. It's not my power that is making me do this, but that there is a universe. And millions of factors are arranging themselves so that I can achieve or perform at a particular level. The third story is the most endearing story for me. And it happened when I was 15 years old. I had been playing billiards for 2 years, and the Billiard and Snooker Federation of India decided to have a junior national billiard championship. And at the age of 15, I went to Jamshedpur. This was the first time it was held. I won the billiard event, and it was a massive trophy, pure silver, beautiful big trophy. I came runner-up in snooker, and I had gone by train, second class to Calcutta. It took 48 hours. I came back by train. But when I came back home, and this is exactly how the conversation went with my dad, I came back home and I had this huge grin on my face, and he opened the door, mom and dad opened the door. I took a rickshaw from the station, went there, went home, and he gave me a huge hug. Mom gave me a hug, and then my dad gave me a huge hug. He kissed me and he said, "Well done." He looked at the trophy. He said, "Bahut badhiya." He took the trophy. He put it on the side somewhere. He didn't put it on a mantelpiece. He put it on the side somewhere. He said, "Come." We had a cup of tea. My mom made me a toast. So this is now into its 20th minute. And then my dad says, "Beta, mera juta polish kar de yaar." I was 15 years old, and you know, it was not an unreasonable demand by my dad. I said, "Sure, which one?" He said, "Kala wala." I took his black shoe and I sat down and I was polishing his shoe. Between the age of 15 and 18, I had become a junior champion, and I was beating everybody. I was beating everybody in the juniors, I was beating everybody in the seniors, and I was being invited to tournaments across the state, across the country, and I was going for them. And every time that I came back, my dad would give me a kiss, he would give me a hug, and he would tell me, "Mera scooter saaf kar de." The third time he told me, "Meri shirt istri kar de." The fourth time he told me, "Thoda Sadar Bazaar jaake mere liye ye le aa." And it used to be in the 20th minute of my arrival back home. I have never thought about it, and I thought about it only about 4 or 5 years ago when I was in a very introspective stage. And what was the message that he was trying to give me? He was an enlightened guy, according to me. And what was he trying to tell me? He was trying to tell me that the glitter of the silverware, don't get carried away by it. That's what he was trying to tell me. Don't get carried away by it. He was also trying to tell me that it was my fantastic play that helped me get that trophy. And he was trying to tell me that that had happened 2 days ago. If it was Calcutta, which was 48 hours away, it was 2 days ago. And if it was Bombay, it was 10 hours ago. But he's now, and he used to tell me to polish my shoes or polish his shoes, and then after that he used to say, Ab ja, club ja, now go and practice. So he was unconsciously, subconsciously telling me to remain in the present. He was telling me, work hard, just continue doing. He was telling me today is the present, and today the trophy is history, and today is the time for practice. And I think I can't thank him enough. I just can't thank him enough for doing it so beautifully, doing it so subtly, and doing it with such consistency and with such love. And I think as parents, I think we need to do that. We need to do that for our children. And if your parent or if your mother or father asks you to polish a shoe, please don't growl at him, okay? There may be a deeper meaning behind the polishing of the shoe. Really, these are the 3 stories that I wanted to share with you. Perhaps we can talk more in terms of a question-answer session, but I think the message of these 3 stories I can encapsulate for all of you is, when you succeed, go polish a shoe, okay? And when you're down and out, become obsessed. Become obsessed to the point of going insane. And thirdly, recognize that there is a universe which arranges itself in very intricate patterns, patterns that we can't recognize, but which mean a lot. Sometimes the patterns help us, and sometimes the patterns put us down. But recognize those patterns. Thank you.